Hello everyone, San here. In this video, you'll learn about what middleware is and how do you use them in Flask. So first of all, what is middleware? Basically, middleware is a piece of code that runs before or just before a request. Okay. So for example, let's say I have a server here and my server is receiving a request to the hello endpoint. And before I run this, I want to run a certain function. Okay. And it's gonna be named as my function. And just before I execute this endpoint, just before I call this endpoint, I want to run my function code. Okay, so depending on the function, this function can pass down data to my endpoint, so it can pass down any piece of data. We'll learn that later on this video. Or depending on a certain condition, it can even abort a request, or it can even let the request pass through. Okay, so a common use case of this is authentication. For example, let's say you have a to-do app and there you have a user. Okay, you have a user that wants to make a GET request to his notes directory. Okay, he wants to get his notes, and the app first of course has to ensure that he is logged in or that they are logged in. So a common use case of this can be authentication. For example, let's say you have a to-do app, and in this to-do app you have a user and they want to make a request to the notes directory where they want to get their to-do items. So before running this endpoint, I want to ensure that the user is logged in. So just before the user makes this request to this endpoint, I want to make sure that they are logged in. If they are logged in, then I want to let this request go through, which means a 200 status code. Otherwise, if they aren't logged in, which means this returns false. If this returns false, I want to return a 401 or an unauthorized error. So in this case, I would have to write a middleware function that ensures that this user is authenticated. Now that you've learned what middleware is, let's now write some code. So in your project directory, what I want you to do is first of all create an empty environment. So it's gonna go something like this: conda create -n, and then I'm gonna name it middleware tutorial. Then I'm gonna activate it. Now that I've activated it, I want to install Flask. To do so, it's pretty easy. Conda install -c conda -forge Flask. Awesome. Now I'm going to write some basic code to get my server up and running. So I'm going to create a file called main.py. Then I'm going to import Flask. Then I'm going to do is app, because I'm going to create my application instance basically. And then I'm going to define a basic route, def index, and then return message. I'm going to return a message, welcome to the app. Okay, and then I want to run it. So Flask app main.py debug run. So it's running. Let's see if I can actually make a request. Awesome. So my code works. Okay, for the first part, let's now actually write some middleware. So I'm going to create a function. I'm going to create a middleware function that will run before every request. So to do so, first I'm going to use this little decorator called app.beforeRequest. So what it basically does, it tells Python that my function basically will just run before every request. So I'm going to show you how it runs. Def, and then I'm going to do demo middleware. Then I want to have my request body. So request body equals to request dot get JSON, and of course I have to import request. Okay, and then what I want to say, if my request body does not have a password field, if it does not have it, then I want to abort request body, and then if there's not, then I want to send an error authenticated. Okay, and then I'm going to send a 401 unauthorized error. That's it. And let's see if it actually works. So for example, let's say I have a request body, and in my request body I'm gonna have a name, and let's see if it actually works. Okay, so I'm getting an unauthorized error. Let's now have a password, and I'm gonna just name it test. Awesome. So as you can see, it runs just fine. Now let's say that you want to run your middleware code on certain routes. Okay, well, that's really easy. So what we can do, instead of using this decorator, we can use decorated functions. Okay, so to make that happen, what I'm going to do first is from functools import wraps. So this allows me to use my decorated functions, and then I can rewrite this code using a decorated function like so. First, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to define my function. Okay, and then since it's going to be a decorator, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use wraps and then define my function. Next, of course, all of this code will be the same here, and I just need to write it. So first of all, get my request body, and then check if password exists. Error, you are not authenticated, and then a 401. However, let's say there is a password in my request body, I'm just gonna return the normal function, so it means that the request was successful. Then lastly, return my decorated function so that I can use it. I'm gonna comment out this code, and then I'm gonna use it here. Let's now test it out. So I have my request body, and then see if it all works. Awesome, so it works. If I remove the password field and then like rename it, yeah, it works great. Let's now talk about blueprints. How do we integrate middleware and our blueprints together? So as the first step, what you have to do is I have to create a blueprint. So, and then write my usual boilerplate stuff. And then what I need to do is I'm gonna initialize my blueprint, give it a name first of all, and then define a simple route. So if the user goes to the index route, they are gonna see this method, show hello, and then return. Now lastly, all I want to do is register it. So to register it, app.register blueprint, and then the name of my blueprint, and then the URL prefix. So it means that if I go to the hello endpoint, I want my hello page blueprint to run. So all I need to do is import it. Now let's see if it works. Great, it works. Now, how do I use middleware with it? Well, one way to run middleware is to use a decorative function here, and then we can simply just use this decorative function on our endpoint. Another way is to use another method called before request functions. So I'm going to show you how we can use this. First of all, create a function here called let's say def validate age field. So what I want to do is I want to check if my request body has an age field to it. So if not age in request body, if the age field doesn't exist, I want to return an error. Great. Now how do I use it? So all I need to do is I need to register this function as middleware. First of all, I'm going to import it, validate each field, and then all I need to do is register it here. So before request functions is equal to, and then it accepts an object. So first argument is going to be my the name of my blueprint, and then it will accept an array of functions. So in this case it's validate each field. Okay, so now let's see if it works. Hello, and then let's see, it should give me an error. Awesome. And then if I specify an age field, it should work. Great. Okay, last but not the least, where we can even pass down data from a middleware function. So like there might have been some circumstances where you as a developer might have to pass down some data from the middleware to the current endpoint. Okay, so for example, some endpoints in a real world app might need access to a user's access token if you're doing authentication. Okay, so to do this we can use the kwargs keyword as specified here to pass down some data. What I mean by that is, for example, I can use the kwargs, and then since it's a JSON object, I can just specify the name here. So for example, if it's computer, and then I can use my function, the isAuthorized function will just simply pass down my data. So all I need to do is I need to add the kwargs keyword, kwargs argument, and then it should work just fine. So print, since it's a JSON object, I'm just gonna access name. As you can see, computer is being logged out. Let's use another value and it should work again. Great. So yeah, that's it for today, guys. In this video you learned about middleware using blueprints and normal endpoint routes. And yeah, that's it for today, guys. If you had any questions, let me know. Thank you for watching.